It started with a note. Small, handwritten, left on my desk. The problem: I live alone. And the locks had been changed 2 days ago. At first, I thought it was a joke. Until the second note appeared. Now, each message reveals something only I should know. And if he can get in with the door locked, then maybe he never really left. The first note: my name is Victoria, and I've always been an extremely organized person. Every object has its place, every routine is followed religiously. That's why when I saw that small folded piece of paper on top of my laptop on Monday morning, I knew immediately something was wrong. The note read, "You forgot to water the plants yesterday, they're thirsty." My first reaction was to laugh. Obviously, it was a prank. Maybe my sister Rachel had managed to get a copy of the key before I changed the locks. But when I looked at the plants on the windowsill, my blood ran cold. They really were wilted. I had forgotten to water them on Sunday. How could someone know that? Paranoia, or reality? On Tuesday, I decided I was being paranoid. I installed a small security camera pointing at the desk where I'd found the first note. If someone was playing games with me, I would find out. I spent the entire day at work, anxious to get home and check the recordings. When I opened the apartment door at 6:30 p.m., everything seemed normal. I rushed to the computer, opened the video file and, nothing, absolutely nothing unusual throughout the entire day. But there was a second note on the desk. "The camera won't help, Victoria. Some things can't be seen." My name. He knew my name. Investigating the past. That night, I called Marcus, the apartment owner. He had been very helpful when I moved in 3 months ago, always willing to solve any maintenance problems. "Marcus, I need to know, who lived in this apartment before me?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Why do you want to know that, Victoria?" "Just, curiosity." "It was a guy named Derek Hayes. He lived there for 2 years. Left kind of, abruptly." "What do you mean by abruptly?" "Well, he just disappeared one night. Left all his stuff behind. When we couldn't contact him for 2 weeks, we had to clean out the apartment and put everything in storage." My heart began to beat faster. The storage discovery. Marcus gave me the address of the storage facility where Derek's things were kept. The next day, using my lunch break, I went there. The attendant, an elderly man named George, led me to Unit 47. "Nobody ever came to get this stuff," he muttered, opening the metal door. 3 months stored here. Inside was basic furniture, clothes, books, and dozens of notebooks. I picked one up and opened it. The handwriting was identical to the notes I was receiving. The pages were filled with notes about daily routines, detailed observations about habits, and my name appeared in the last entries. "Victoria moved into my apartment today." She doesn't. No, I'm still there. The pattern. I rushed home with 3 of Derek's notebooks. I sat at the kitchen table and began reading every word. What I discovered made me question my sanity. Derek had meticulously documented every detail of life in the apartment. He knew about a leak in the bathroom that would only be discovered during heavy rains. He knew the kitchen faucet made a specific noise when closed too quickly. He knew about the upstairs neighbor who played piano every Wednesday at 8 p.m. And in the last pages, There was information about me, my plans, my work schedule, the fact that I always forgot to water the plants on Sundays when I was stressed. How could he know these things if he had disappeared before I moved in? The third note. On Thursday morning, I found the third note stuck to the bathroom mirror. You found my notebooks. Now you understand. I know you better than you imagine. Today you'll discover how I know everything. My hands trembled as I read. I called in sick to work and spent the entire day searching every corner of the apartment. I moved furniture, checked behind pictures, looked inside every cabinet, and then, when I was checking the bedroom closet, I noticed something strange. One of the backboards seemed loose. I pushed hard and it gave way, revealing a small hidden space. Inside was a flashlight, some crackers, a small blanket, and more notebooks. The hiding place. The notebooks from the hiding place were different. These contained detailed blueprints of the apartment, including this secret space I had just discovered. There were also schedules. My schedules. Victoria leaves for work at 8:15 a.m. every morning. She showers at 10:30 p.m. On Saturdays, she goes to the grocery store at 10 a.m. Page after page of information about my routine, noted with frightening precision. And then I saw the most recent entry. She'll find this hiding place today. It's time we meet. The confrontation. That night, I decided I wouldn't run away. If Derek was somehow getting into my house, I would confront him. I prepared a baseball bat and sat in the living room, waiting. At 2:34 a.m., I heard a very soft sound coming from the bedroom, like the creak of a board being moved. My heart raced. But I forced myself to stay calm. I gripped the bat and walked silently to the bedroom. The loose board in the closet was open. And then, to my absolute horror, I saw a hand emerging from the hole. Then an arm, and finally, a thin man with dark hair emerged completely. Derek Hayes was standing in my bedroom, staring at me with a disturbing smile. "Hi, Victoria. We finally meet. Impossible revelations. How are you doing this?" I screamed, still holding the bat. "You disappeared months ago." Derek laughed, a sound that made me shiver. Disappearing is an interesting word. I never really left this apartment. There's something special about it. Something that allows me to be here even when I shouldn't be. He approached the window and, to my horror, I could see through him. Like he was a projection, a ghost. "Are you dead?" I whispered. "Not exactly. I'm trapped between being here and not being here. And your presence in this place gave me a strength I hadn't had for a long time." The truth about the apartment. Derek told me his story. 3 months ago, he had discovered the same secret hiding place I found. But exploring it more deeply, he discovered it led to a system of tunnels between the building's walls. I was fascinated, he explained. I spent weeks exploring, mapping every passage. But one night, I got lost. I was trapped in the walls for days, without food, without water. He stopped and looked at me with those empty eyes. When I finally managed to get back to the apartment, I realized something had changed. I was no longer solid. I could pass through doors, but couldn't leave the building. And then you moved in, and your life energy gave me enough strength to materialize for short periods. Derek's plan. "What do you want from me?" I asked, still trying to process this impossible information. I want you to help me get out of here. There's a way, but I need your help. Derek explained that, according to his research in the notebooks he'd left in storage, he could free himself if he could get someone to voluntarily take his place. An exchange of life essence. You just need to say you accept to stay in my place. It's simple. What if I refuse? His smile disappeared. Then I'll make your life here impossible. I'll always be here, always watching, always reminding you that you'll never really be alone. The investigation. In the following days, I pretended to consider Derek's proposal while secretly researching everything about him. I found police records about his disappearance, but I also found something more disturbing. Derek Hayes had been investigated for stalking before his disappearance. An ex-girlfriend, Amanda, had filed several complaints about him breaking into her house, leaving unwanted gifts, and monitoring her activities. I called Amanda and we met at a downtown cafe. He was obsessive, she told me, tears in her eyes. It started romantic, but then became scary. He knew things about me I had never told anyone. And he always said he knew ways to get into anywhere. Derek's true nature. Amanda told me more about Derek. He had been a security systems technician before becoming obsessed with her. He used his professional skills to install hidden cameras and listening devices in his victims' homes. He never died, Amanda told me. I'm sure of it. Derek is very smart. He probably faked his disappearance to escape the police investigations. This made much more sense than ghosts and supernatural phenomena. Derek had created an elaborate hoax, using technological tricks and knowledge of the building's systems, to make me believe he was some kind of supernatural entity. But how was he managing to get into my apartment? Discovering the trick, I returned home determined to find out how Derek was really getting into the apartment. If he wasn't a ghost, then there was a logical explanation. I spent hours examining every inch of the hiding place I had found. And then, pushing deeper into the opening, I discovered it led to a ventilation duct that ran between the walls of the entire building. The system was old and poorly sealed. Following the duct with a flashlight, I discovered it connected to several apartments, including one in the basement that was apparently abandoned. That's where Derek had been living all this time. He had turned the abandoned apartment into his base of operations, from where he could monitor and access other apartments through the ventilation system. Final confrontation and resolution. Armed with this information, I confronted Derek the next time he appeared. I know where you're living, I said firmly. I know you're not a ghost. You're just a pathetic stalker who uses cheap tricks. Derek's mask fell completely. His expression changed from mysterious to furious. You can't prove anything, he snarled. Actually, I can. I showed my phone, which had been recording our conversation. I had also photographed the abandoned apartment and documented the duct system. The police are already on their way. And this time, you won't be able to disappear. Derek tried to escape through the ventilation system, but the police had already surrounded the building. He was arrested in the abandoned apartment, surrounded by surveillance equipment, photos of me, and detailed plans of how to terrorize me. In court, Amanda and 3 other women testified about Derek's pattern of stalking. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Conclusion: I moved out of the apartment the following month. I couldn't continue living in a place where I felt constantly watched. Even knowing Derek was imprisoned, I learned a valuable lesson. When something seems supernatural, there's usually a very human and very frightening explanation behind it. People are capable of terrible things when obsessed, and sometimes reality is more terrifying than any ghost. Today, 3 years later, I still double-check the locks before sleeping. And I always research the history of any apartment before moving in. Because I discovered that real monsters aren't ghosts, they're people. And they can be much more dangerous than any spirit. Because they know exactly how to terrorize us in ways that seem impossible, until you discover the truth.